In this example, we'll be making a skirt with maximum flare and additional fullness, and in this case we'll plan for pleats or tucks. So my waist looks a little funky because I just divided my single dart into two for this example, and the problem should disappear as we go along. So you want to close your dart by opening it into flare at the bottom of the skirt. And I'm going to come straight down with my line. And draw another straight line. So we've moved our darts. Now I don't like it, so I'm going to draw a right angle and reblend the top of that curve. So you want to create a right angle from the corner and extend it out from both corners. So I've got a right angle line there, and then I'm starting from that line and using my curve to blend between the two so I don't have any shallow spaces and it's a nice smooth curve. I'm also going to smooth out my hemline with my curve, and I'll keep the original right angles and just bump my curve out to the length of the line and then swap that. Well, if you're working with paper, you'll just draw it, and then you won't have those two lines anymore because they're the flare we're starting with. So there's my cleaned up front. It's still showing the two front darts, and I've extended a line out with a right angle from the side seam corner, which is the maximum I can go before I start slashing. We certainly could take that line at less of an angle, but you would want to start with the width that you wanted it to be and then bump it into the side of the skirt. So I could do that from the other position. If I bring it in over here, you can see how that line is going to end where it touches that part of the curve. So I've got options along here. This is just my maximum. And then I'll right angle back into it, but I'm going to wait to do that until I get my back skirt done. And preliminary, I drew my maximum line out there. Okay, this one has markings for a single dart. I'm going to ignore those. And draw a line straight to the hem. And I'll leave the darts there for you to see. Well, it was silly of me to draw that line because the skirt moved and it didn't. Okay. And another line parallel to the center front back. Okay. So that's cleaned up a little bit. I could delete some lines and right angle out from the corner again. Smooth out your hem with your curve, and I usually start so that I've still got my right angle on the side if I don't want to add a lot of extra flare. And then bump that with your curve so it blends all of those together. Alright, I smoothed out the hemline on the back and the front, and I've aligned them here on the side seam so just that top edge of the seam allowance is touching, and you can kind of see where that little problem area is on my skirt. But this is another way. If you line them up on the side seam corner and it blends smoothly and you've got a right angle coming down here, then you can just draw a straight line from the corner to the middle of that line, and then your skirts will automatically be balanced. Alright, I've cleaned up my two pieces and made sure all of the right angles are where they're supposed to be, and now I want to look at whether or not they're balanced, because when I closed the darts and opened them into flare, the darts weren't even, and so the back piece has less flare than the front, partly due to the fact, and this isn't going to be consistent between each basic sloper, depending on the posture of the person or form wearing it. And notice that I'm lining it up right here on the side seam corner, because the side seams are going to sew together, so that's the area that counts. And when those side seams are lined up at the corner like we do, my center front and center back should be parallel to each other. Not equal, not at the same level in the center front, but the center front and center back are parallel to each other the way they're parallel to each other when you're standing up straight and the side seam is touching. So here on the side, I need to split the difference between the two so that I have half of my flare on, so that my side seam is balanced. So when I divide this space in half, I will cut that much off of the front and add that same amount to the back so that they will be identical. But in this case, I want to have a straight line coming from the top corner. So if I wanted to, I could just put a straight line out here, but I can't exceed a 90-degree angle. So based on the angle of the waist, it might end up to be a little bit different. But you can always just extend it out. I want a straight line. So if I wanted a straight line, I could come up here and connect to the top and then bring it straight out, and come from where it touches the skirt. And if I just have that touching, and when you read your books, they'll tell you exactly how much they want you to add. The important point is you can't exceed a right angle here on the side before you start slashing and spreading open the skirt. And because I know I want them to both come to that line, I'm just going to blend the line from both of them there and make that where both of their side seams are, and I won't have to do a lot of balancing. So I'll just draw a right angle coming down there, and that actually looks like I'm close to the right spot, but I'm going to raise it a little bit. And because I drew it, it will still be at a right angle. But I'm going to bump it up there. Okay, so I'm going to make both of the side seams of my skirt come to there, so I've basically balanced it and added additional flare at the same time. So I've cleaned that up and the skirts are balanced now. You can see the original lines. I added additional flare and I balanced it at the same time. And I'm going to flip one of them over so we can look at how the side seams are coming together. And those look like they're coming together nicely. If this isn't a smooth curve right through here, then you'll want to blend the line, but make sure they're lined up exactly on the side seam corner right here and the hem, and they should be the same length. And it looks like I have a slight hem discrepancy, so I will fix that. And then we will continue with the added fullness for gathers or pleats. I've divided my pieces at the waist and the hem, so I have equally divided spaces. And I'm going to draw a line between each of them, and then I'm going to cut them apart on the line and spread them open. So after I slashed it, I spread it, and I added 1 inch at the top and 2 at the bottom. But you can do any variation you want. You can add the same at the top as at the bottom. You can add more at the top and more at the bottom. You just want to make sure you have a notch at both edges of the pleat, and then you want to fold them exactly. This notch fold to that one. No, this notch fold to this one, and this notch fold to this one, until it's closed, and crease it sharply and cut the top while it's folded on both pieces, and then you have your skirt that has added flare and extra fullness at the bottom with 3 pleats on the front and 3 on the back for a total of 12 all the way around. Be sure that you fold the pleats in the direction that you want them to go. So in the picture we were looking at, they were all folding toward the back from the front, so the front ones were going backwards away from the center front, and the back ones are going toward the center back because it's going all the way around the same direction from the front to the back. But you can do the opposite of that too. And if you want to, you could even put a pleat on the side seam. It's not common, but you could do that. And then if you're just turning this into gathers, you would just smooth that line out on both of the waistline seams, and then it would sew in to that waistband that we made. So a maximum flared skirt with additional fullness, and that skirt is finished. But if you wanted to add even more flare that would cause it to go further out, you would just start slashing maybe in between if you wanted additional gathers. So if we switched over to we're doing a gathered skirt and we've added the amount that we want to at the top, but we still want more flare at the bottom, then you would draw a line halfway between on the rest of them. And this time I'm just going to do I'm drawing my lines in between. And I want to add an additional 2 inches to each of them. So you can see how that changed the curvature of the top of the skirt from what it was. Before it was curved. Well, I'll flip this over. So this is similar because they used to be balanced. So it changed the shape of the top of the skirt and the amount of additional flare. And by doing it that way, which is different even from the plain one, the reason I like to tell you that the way the skirt hangs is controlled by the shape of the outer edge of the piece. And on a skirt, it's particularly the waistband area. And you can close this dart and open it into flare. But if you were to take this outside line and try to do all of the flare, if I wanted to bring that all the way out, if I were to do that and then reshape the bottom edge of the skirt, you can see how this one has a very unnatural side seam, and because all of that flare is directed out here to the side and the waistline seam doesn't change, that's why all of that flare is going to end up in a puddle on the side of the skirt. And sometimes you see that in a design on purpose, but it's less common. And you only want it there if you choose to have it there. It's usually considered a mistake. So the shape of the curve change when you're adding maximum flare in these two skirts, they're both going to hang nicely because the shape of the curve changed. And if I wanted to sew these two together, I would have to slash and spread those like I did the other one so that the side seam balanced again.